Shalom, beloveds of the King. Praise Abba Yahuwah. We're going to look at our next Torah portion, which is Hayyei Sarah. And this is the life of Sarah as it starts off in this Torah portion where Sarah is going to pass away. We are looking at our Torah portions according to the biblical calendar that we started on the 23rd of March when we spotted the new moon, and we are doing the Torah portions according to the biblical calendar. We are not doing the Torah portions according to the calendar of the rabbis, because they start the biblical calendar at the time, they only start reading Torah portions after Sukkot, and this is now when they start their Torah portion cycle. But the Father has given me instruction, and He has said to me that I am to read these Torah portions according to His biblical calendar, according to His Torah cycle, so that we may align ourselves with His alignment, to be able to read the Torah portions according to the alignment of time of what is written in the Word in terms of the cycle that we find ourselves in now. And I personally am standing in absolute awe to be able to see what the Father is doing, as truly we are walking out a way that we've never gone before, because this is a way that we have not gone before. I don't know of many people that are doing the Torah cycles according to the biblical calendar. And so every week it is a new surprise to see what the Father wants to reveal to us. So this is exciting. It's exciting to be able to do the Torah portions according to the Father's alignment of time, so that we can align ourselves with His perfect timing. Let us pray. Abba Yahuwah, I just want to praise and thank you, my Father, for what you are doing in our lives in this critical hour and this prophetic season that we find ourselves in order to be able to know that this was the time of when Yeshua was walking the earth, and He has come, revealed Himself to more than 500 people before the time of His ascension. And we are in a prophetic time, and we are in a time of when Yeshua is looking now. He's on the earth. He has set His disciples apart. He's setting His disciples apart. He is going to give us His Ruach HaKodesh, His Spirit, in order to be able to select for Himself a bride. He's going to choose these disciples that He tells them to follow Him, and they are to go out into the world and to be able to make disciples of all men and all nations. And so, Abba Father, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you as you are the one who's going to go before me in this time, where you are the one that is leading us by the hand on these Torah portions in order to be able to reveal yourself to us in this time, so that we may know what it is that you are saying to us in this time of these Torah portions, for us to be able to align ourselves to know the prophetic utterances that are coming out of your mouth in terms of what we are studying in these Torah portions, to align ourselves with your timeline, and to be able to understand that this is a prophetic season, this is a prophetic timing where we are walking in order to align ourselves with you. And so, Abba, my Father, I just want to thank you that I can just submit myself right now to you in this time, asking you to be the one to be able to come and reveal yourself to us, to lead us, to guide us, and to be able to open up your scriptures, because this was the time of exactly when you came and you breathed on your disciples your Spirit, and you came and you opened up the mind of their understanding for them to be able to read the scriptures with an understanding of being able to understand the prophetic revelation of the scriptures. And so, Abba Yahuwah, I just want to thank you that I commit this time right now to you. May you speak to my mind and speak through my lips the very oracles that will come from your heart in this time, in Yeshua's name. Amen. And so, Hayyei Sarah is basically Genesis 23, from Genesis 23 verse 1 to Genesis 25 verse 18. And then we look at the Haftorah, and the Haftorah is 1 Kings 1, 1 to 31. And this is what we are looking at in this time. And so we are going to be able to have a look and see what it is that the Father wants to share with us today in terms of being able to surrender ourselves into his understanding, into his mindset, into what he is revealing to us in this very hour of how we, in this timing of as we are walking out with, in the season of where Yeshua was walking the earth. So we look at Genesis chapter 23, and here we see that Sarah died in Kiriath Arba in verse 2, Genesis 23 from verse 2. Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan, and Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. And so everything about chapter 23 is really looking at a burial site for Sarah and for his descendants, because we are going to understand that Hebron is going to be the area of where he is going to get himself a burial site. And this is very significant because at the end of the day, this is a very controversial place in the land of Israel right now. And so we read, and it says, Abram rose from beside his dead and spoke to the sons of Heth, saying, I am your foreigner and a sojourner among you. Give me property for a burial site among you, so that I may bury my dead from my presence. And so we have a look at verse 9, and it says in Genesis 23, verse 9, and it says, and let me have the cave of Machpelah, which he has, which is at the end of the field. Let him give it to me for the complete amount of silver as property for a burial site among you. So if we have a look at Machpelah, Machpelah means double portion, it means double field. So there's going to be a double portion, a double field, because this is going to become the burial site of the patriarchs. So Sarah is going to be buried there, Abraham is going to be buried there. Very interesting how Rachel is not going to be buried there, but this is going to become a burial site even for Leah. Jacob and Leah is going to be buried there. And so the patriarchs are going to be buried in this burial site. And so we understand that this cave is in Hebron, and still today it belongs to Israel, not to the Arabs. But Hebron is a very controversial place, and even to go to to Machpelah, to Hebron, in order to be able to, go to the cave, or to the burial site, it is not easy, because the land there is very controversial. But it's very interesting, because if we have a look at Genesis chapter 15, it says, Genesis 23 verses 15 says, my master, listen to me. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between you and me? So bury your dead. And Abraham listened to Ephron, and Abraham weighed out the silver for Ephron, which he had named in the hearing of the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, currency of the merchants. And thus the field of Ephron, which was in Machpelah, which was before Mamre, the field, the cave which was in it, and all the trees that were in the field, which was within all the surrounding borders, were deeded. So understand, this land absolutely belongs to the Israelites, because it was purchased and bought by Abraham. And it's almost like Father was going to do that ahead of time, knowing that this land was going to become controversial. But you see, it's wonderful, because everything is recorded in this Bible. But the problem is that these, in Israel, the Palestinians don't really have our Bible. But this land belongs. It's a gray area, and in Israel there's a lot of gray areas. It's a gray area, but it is an area that absolutely belongs to Israel, as it was bought by Abraham. So Hebron itself means association, to unite, to join, to bind together, to be united. So in this land of Hebron, there was going to be a unity amongst the patriarchs. All of the dead, that was the patriarchs, were going to be buried in this cave. And it's interesting because as we see this whole thing about a burial site taking place in this time, again, in the land of Israel, once our Messiah dies, there is going to be a cave, a tomb. Again, like there had to be a tomb to bury the dead, it had to be a tomb that was going to be a double portion, a double field. It had to be a double field, a double portion, because it was going to bring the patriarchs were going to be buried there. And so in Matthew chapter 27, let's go look at Matthew chapter 27. In Matthew chapter 27, verses 57 to 61, it says, "And when evening came, there came a rich man from Ramathaim, named Joseph, who himself had also become a taught one of Yahushua. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Yahushua. Then Pilate commanded the body to be given, and having taken the body, Joseph wrapped it in a clean linen and laid it in his new tomb, which he had hewn out of the rock, and he rolled a large stone against the door of the tomb and went away." So Yahushua himself was buried in a tomb, a brand new tomb that had been hewn out of rock, that had never been used, and Yahushua himself was buried in a tomb that was also purchased by Joseph, and that he was going to be laid in that tomb where he would have resurrected out of that tomb. And today, once again, where is that tomb? Also, it's in Jerusalem, across from Damascus Gate, where the heel of the skull is. And this is now where we've got the garden tomb, and this is where the tomb is. But once again, that area, again, controlled in the Arab area. So it just amazes me how all these areas, because really when we come to our set apart places of where we really want to get to, it seems to be occupied. So always the enemy is wanting to occupy those set apart places that actually belongs to Abba Yahuwah. And this is what we see. There's always the counterfeit. I mean, the same as where the Golden Gate is, where Yahushua is going to come through the Golden Gate. What has been put in front of the Golden Gate? All these Arab graves that has been put there. Again, the defilement to defile the entrance of the king to be able to come. Again, the Mount of Olives. Who lives on the Mount of Olives? The whole of the Mount of Olives is occupied. It's Palestinian occupation, where they are the ones that live there. And so if you take Nazareth, again, the place of where Yeshua came from, who is occupied there? And so it's always the enemy wanting to take the ground that rightfully belongs to the Father, to take the inheritance that belongs to the Father and take it and then want to bring defilement. I mean, if you take just where the area of the skull is, where it would have been the death of Yeshua, it is a hectic place there because it's a bus terminal and it's busy and it's worldly and busy. And this is where the Arab people in Jerusalem, this is where they catch their buses. Very, very busy, not a very clean area, and yet such a significant place for us who truly love and revere our Messiah. So now we get to Genesis chapter 24, and this is where we're going to spend a lot of our time, a little bit more of our time, to really discuss Genesis 24, because I think this whole Torah portion, the significance of the Torah portion, is really summed up in Genesis chapter 24 for us to understand the season and the time that we find ourselves in. And so in Genesis 24, we read from verse 1, and Abraham was old, advanced in years, and Yahuwah had blessed Abraham in every way. And Abraham said to the oldest servant of his house, who ruled over all that he had, please put your hand under my thigh, so that I make you swear by Yahuwah, the allure of the heavens and the allure of the earth, that you do not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I dwell. So this is very significant, because the father is going to choose his bride. They are his people. They are his set apart ones. He's going to choose his bride from his own. He's not going to go and get some kind of a rebellious bride. Understand, he was not going to get a bride that was going to come out of the Canaanites. He was not going to get the bride that was going to come out of those Canaanite people, or any of the other ites that were living in the land. He did not want one of those for his bride, because he was going to go and get his bride that was going to come from the genealogy, that needed to come from the genealogy of Shem, in order for us to understand that out of the genealogy of Shem is where the father had raised up. It was going to be from Shem. That was going to be the bloodline from which Abraham was going to come. So we've looked at, in Genesis chapter 10, we have a look and we see that from the genealogy of Shem, Shem was the one that was promised, the promise of the one that was going to be able to carry the blessing. So if we have a look and we see that when the father, when Noah blessed his children, it was going to be Japheth was going to dwell in the tents of Shem, and that where cursed was going to be the son of Ham, which was Canaan, he was going to be cursed, and they would eventually serve Shem. And so if we look and we see that from Shem came Arpachshad, and then Shelah, and then Eber, and then Peleg, and then Ru, and then Sereg, and then Nahor, and then Terah, and then Abram. And so we understand that from Terah was going to come Abram. But Terah did not only have Abram as a son, because he had other sons. He had it says, and Abram and Nahor took wives, for the name of Abram's wife was Sarai. But Terah brought forth Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Haran brought forth Lot. So we know that Haran brought forth Lot, and we know that Haran died, and that eventually Abraham took care of Lot. And there was another brother, Nahor, and this is for us to be able to understand. And this is why now he tells his servant Eliezer, Eliezer, that we might know him as Eliezer, but Eliezer, he is to go to the land. He's to go to the land and go and find himself a wife. And so he says, but go to my land. So where was the land? He came out of Haran. He came out of the land of the Chaldeans, which is where he came out of. And so we have a look and we see Terah died in Haran. So he came out of Haran. And so now we understand that this is now when Abraham is giving instruction, because Isaac needs to marry within the bloodline. That is why it is very significant that we understand Abraham married Sarah, and Sarah was a half a sister, because Sarah also came from the bloodline that came down from Shem. And now we are going to be able to see that the father is going to be able to get Abraham to get Isaac to again go back to his descendants, to go back to his relatives and go and find for himself a wife that comes from the bloodline of Shem, because there's going to be no mixed seed in this bloodline. This bloodline is going to come, because remember, both Sarah and Abraham both came from the bloodline of Shem. And so this is why he's being told to go and get him a wife. And he says, and the servant said to him, verse 5, what if the woman refuses to follow me to this land? Do I then take your son back to the land from which you came? And Abraham said to him, beware, lest you take my son back there. So we must understand that Isaac, there must, out of Isaac, there must come forth his people to stay in the genealogy of Shem. And from here, the father is going to be able to go and take his wife to be able to stay in the genealogy. He doesn't go and take a bride out of the Gentiles. He takes a bride that's going to be able to eventually make up the 12 tribes of the house of Israel, but that's going to come. And that's why we're going to be grafted into this house. But out of this house is going to be the pure bloodline that the Father is going to bring down. There's no mixed seed. And in Genesis chapter 24, verses 6, we are not to go back to Mitzrayim. He tells him, do not take my son back to Egypt. Do not take him back to Mitzrayim. You are not to take him back from where you came. So we are not to look back. Once we start on our path, we are not to look back. And then he tells him in verse 7, a lure of the heavens, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my relatives, who spoke to me and swore to me, saying, to your seed I give this land. He sends his messenger before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. Here we see that Abraham tells Elazar, he tells Eliezer, that Yahuwah will send a messenger and he will know to take a wife for Isaac. Who is this messenger? So this messenger already to us in this time that we're looking at this timeline, the messenger is symbolic of the Ruach HaKodesh. The Ruach HaKodesh is the one that is being set apart. It's his set apart spirit, and Eliezer is going to be led by the Ruach of Yahuwah in order to be able to find the wife. So he is symbolic of, Eliezer is really symbolic of a servant, which is what we are also called to be, an absolute servant, to be able to allow ourselves to be used by the messenger, the Ruach of Yahuwah, in order to be able to do the work that the Father's got for us to do upon the earth, that we are here to serve Abba Yahuwah and his kingdom. And so, we see that this is the messenger is symbolic of the Ruach HaKodesh, the set-apart spirit, just like we are in the time of the preparing ourselves of Yahushua. When Yahushua had the visitation, just before Yahushua died, he spoke. And this time, for this time that we're in, and he said to the disciples that he would send his Ruach, the helper, to prepare us. That he was going to send his helper to prepare us. So if we look at John, let's go look at John chapter 14, and this is why it's so significant in the time that we're in for us to understand that we are absolutely in this timing And so we go look at John chapter 14, and it says, we go look from verses 15, and it says, if you love me, you shall guard my commands. So let's just read from the beginning, from verse 12. Let's just look from John chapter 14, from verse 12. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he shall do also. So understanding that the works that he's going to do, we will do also. Greater works than these he shall do, because I go to my Father. And whatever you ask in my name, that I shall do, in order that the Father might be esteemed in the Son. If you ask whatever in my name, I shall do it. If you love me, you shall guard my commands. So you see, understand, this bride, this true bride that's going to raise up is a bride that obeys the Father's commands, because this bride is the one that is filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, led by the Ruach HaKodesh, to be able to follow the Ruach HaKodesh, absolutely obedient. Elazar had to be obedient to the leading of the Ruach HaKodesh. Eliezer had to be at a place where he was going to have to rest in listening to the Father, praying, seeking the Father, praying, trusting, being led by him. He did not move on his own accord. And this is so important of this whole Torah portion that we're going to look at, for us to understand the difference between the true bride and the false bride. And this is what we must understand. A true bride is one who loves him. And because she loves him, she obeys not only the commands that's written in this Bible, but she rests on him and she listens to his voice and she's led by him. And she obeys his every leading. Not just what he speaks, but she is the unction of the Ruach that moves her. She's absolutely a surrendered vessel that is learned to be able to rest in him and is moved by him in what it is that she needs to do. And this is the bride, because this is the bride that the Ruach of Yahuwah is choosing for the Messiah, Yahushua, just like Elazar is choosing a bride for Isaac, who is going to be a type of Yahushua. And I shall ask the Father, and he shall give you another helper to stay with you forever, the Spirit of truth. So you must understand, the helper is going to lead us into all truth. Not that we will be able to be a rebellious bride that says, I don't want this, I don't want that, I choose this, I choose that. I choose from the word what I want to follow. I want to follow this, but I don't want to follow that. So she does her own thing. She follows her own way. She goes her own way. She's got mixed seed in her, but she's not willing to come out of the lie and come fully into truth and do what the Father wants her to do. And this is why we've got to understand. He didn't go and find a bride that came from the mixed seed. He went and found a bride that was totally set apart, a bride that was going to be able to follow him and look like him and be set apart for him. He did not go and find a bride that is sitting in the mixed seed of the mixed multitude. He did not go and do that. The Spirit of truth, whom the world is unable to see because it does not see him or know him, but you know him, for he stays with you and shall be in you. So you see, the Spirit of Yahuwah resides and leads the true bride of Yahuwah, because this whole Torah portion is actually about a bride being raised up, a bride being set apart. And you are going to understand this even when we get to the Haftorah, even when we're going to get to Kings, we are going to understand the false from the true. I shall not leave you orphans. I am coming to you. Yet a little while, and the world no longer sees me, but you shall see me, because I live and you shall live. In that day you shall know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. Verse 21, very important. He who possesses my commands. So he who possesses my commands, who is willing to walk out my commands, not just the commands that's written in this Bible, but the commands of the spoken word, the command of the written word. It's spirit and truth. It's that bride that it says when John chapter 4, when Yeshua speaks to the woman at the well, and he says, my Father is looking for true worshippers, those who are going to worship him in spirit and in truth. And he says, he who possesses my commands and guards them. So do we guard his commands? Do we guard them? Do we observe it? Do we put it into practice? Do we walk it out? It is he who loves me. And he who loves me shall be loved by my Father. So you see, the one who truly loves him is the true obedient one. They have not raised themselves up. They have not become this rebellious bride that has gone and raised themselves up and made it about themselves. And we are going to look at this in the Haftorah. And I shall love him and manifest myself to him. So you see, Yeshua is in this hour manifesting himself to those who are led by him, to those who have put their trust and faith in him, to those who know how to be led by the Ruach of Yahuwah. You know, there's going to come a time that it's not even that you need to hear his voice. You're just going to walk in his footsteps. The footsteps of a righteous person is guided by Yahuwah. Yahuwah will protect you. I mean, it was like yesterday. I had my friend that is living in Jerusalem who yesterday there was an attack in Jerusalem by the Shuk in Jerusalem. And this friend of mine said she was about to leave. She was going to go to the Shuk because she wanted to go and purchase some stuff for that night. But then she just felt not to go. She felt that she was not to go. And she just felt not to go. And then a little bit later she finds out that all of a sudden, all of this happens. And then everybody's phoning her saying, are you okay? Are you okay? And she says, I'm fine. I'm at home. They said, where are you? She says, I'm at home. And she was supposed to have gone out to the Shuk. And so you see, the footsteps of a righteous person is guided by Yahuwah. And if you're just led by the Ruach of Yahuwah, your life becomes absolutely led by him in your protection. And how many times will the Father protect you if you just listen to the unction, if you're just being protected by the unction of the Ruach, who's the one who leads you? Because Abba Yahuwah says, and I will manifest myself to him. And then if you look at verse 23, and it says, Yahuwah answered him, if anyone loves me, he shall guard my word. So you see, if we love him, we guard his word. It's not, obeying his commands is not a burdensome thing. We do it because we love him. And my Father shall love him, and we shall come to him and make our stay with him. And he who does not love me does not guard my words. So you see, we can say that we love him all we like with our words, but if we do not guard his word, if we do not guard his commands, then we don't really love him. We can worship him with our lips, but yet our hearts are far from him. And the word which you hear is not mine, but the Father who sent me. These words I have spoken to you while still with you. Now there we go, verse 26. But the Helper, the set-apart Spirit, whom the Father shall send in my name, he shall teach you all and remind you of all that I said to you. So there you see, the Helper, the set-apart Spirit, whom the Father shall send in my name. So the Father is going to send the Helper. This is the Spirit of Yahuwah himself. This is Yahuwah himself that is going to be sent in my name. He shall teach you all and remind you of all that I have said. So you see, the Ruach of Yahuwah is to teach us the words of what Yeshua has spoken, and to be able to walk them out. So the Ruach of Yahuwah has been given to us to be able to walk out in the footsteps of Yeshua, to be able to lead, to be able to walk, follow him, to follow him. This is what we are to do, to follow him. So in John chapter 20, let's go quickly look at John chapter 20. In John chapter 20, we have a look and we see 21 to 22. It says, then Yeshua said to them again, peace to you, as the Father has sent me, I also send you. So you see, we are to be also sent. And having said this, he breathed on them and said to them, receive the set-apart Spirit. So Yeshua comes after his resurrection. He's going to breathe on them and say, receive your set-apart Spirit. And he tells them that they are to follow him. Follow him. And so he says, as the Father sent me, I send you. So he's going to want to send them. And so we have a look and we see, let's go and read Matthew chapter 8. Let's read Matthew chapter 8 from verses 19 to 22. And it says, and a certain scribe, having come near, said to him, Teacher, I shall follow you wherever you go. So you see, we are called to follow Yeshua wherever he goes. And Yeshua said to him, foxes have holes and birds of the heavens have nests, but the son of Adam has nowhere to lay his head. Another of his taught ones said to him, Master, first let me go and bury my father. So you see, that it's about burying the dead. What does he say? But Yeshua said to him, follow me. Leave the dead to bury their own dead. So see, we are called to follow Yeshua. We are called to go. This is the time now where we are to be able to let the dead things bury the dead. Let the things of the world worry about the things of the world. What are we called to do? We are called to follow him. This is what he wants. He wants us to follow him. Just like now, there's going to be a bride that's going to be selected. And what is the bride's purpose? The bride's purpose is going to be, that's why the Father is giving us the Ruach of Yahuwah to choose this bride. And we are going to look at Rebecca as being this beautiful, Rivka is going to be this beautiful bride. And what does she do? What does this bride do? So let's have a look at, we're going to continue to read verses 8. And if the woman refuses to follow you, then you shall be released from this oath. Only do not take my son back there. So twice in one chapter 24, he tells him, do not look back. Why? Because when the time is going to come, when things are going to get tough, are we going to go back to Mitzrayim and find our comfort in Mitzrayim? So let's go look at Isaiah. Let's go look at Isaiah chapter 30. And this is a warning for us to give us that we have been delivered out of Egypt. We are now in this wilderness time. And remember, the wilderness is going to take us as long as we choose to be disobedient to the Father. It can either take an 11-day journey or it's either going to take 40 years. And even then, still not enter the promised land. So Isaiah chapter 30 says, woe to the stubborn children, declares Yahuwah, to make counsel but not from me, and to devise plans but not of my spirit. So, you see, the Father needs to send the messenger. The Father needs to send the Ruach HaKodesh so that we do not devise our own plans, so that we do not go our own way, so that we do not make our own schemes, but that we learn to be able to be set apart and trust Him and be led and guided by Him and Him alone. And it says, but not by my spirit, in order to add sin to sin, who are setting out to go down to Mitzrayim and have not asked my mouth. Now, make a note of that, please. See, this scripture was the scripture that the Father had me declare Pesach time when I was in Israel in 2019, just before we were entering into Pesach. I had to declare the scripture. Last year, at exactly 3 o'clock on Pesach, I had to declare Isaiah chapter 30. Now we are at the time of after Passover, and the Father is saying, go and study chapter 30 of Isaiah, because at the end of the day, with the times that we are going to come into, with the difficult times that are ahead of us, we are not to go back and find asylum and find refuge in Egypt and in the ways of Egypt. So he turns around and he says, who are setting to go down to Mitzrayim have not asked my mouth. So the warning for us today is, are we being led by the Ruach of Yahuwah? Are we being led by the one that was promised us, the one that was breathed on us, the one that was given to us in order to be able to follow the leading and the guiding of the Ruach HaKodesh by being a bride? Or are we a rebellious bride that is doing our own thing and that wants to raise ourselves up and do our own thing and not following the leading of the Ruach, or waiting on the Ruach of Yahuwah in order to be able to seek Him to know what to do? And he says, they have not asked my mouth to be strengthened in the strength of Pharaoh and to seek refuge in the shadow of Mitzrayim. So in the days ahead, are we going to seek refuge in the shadow of Mitzrayim? And the strength of the Pharaoh shall become your shame. So you see, if we are going to put our trust and our faith back in the Pharaoh, from where we've been delivered, that we came out of Mitzrayim and been delivered out of the hand of the Pharaoh, are we going to go back and find refuge in the Pharaoh? And it says, your shame and the refuge in the shadow of Mitzrayim, your confusion. We will then dwell in the confusion of Babylon. We will stay in Babylon, because going back to Mitzrayim means going back to Babylon, which means going back into the confusion. So it says, and the strength of the Pharaoh shall become your shame, and the refuge of your shadow of Mitzrayim, your confusion, because Babylon means confusion. So the Father has given us a word to say, come out of Babylon, come out of the confusion of Babylon, because Babylon is confusion. And now he's saying, if you go back and put your trust and your faith in Egypt, in the hand of Egypt, into the Pharaoh from which you have been delivered. The Pharaoh was the one who brought you into bondage. The Pharaoh was the one who had you captive, in bondage, to be a slave. If you want to go back into the slavery of the bondage of where you come from, because you want to go and find your asylum, you're wanting to go and find refuge in Mitzrayim, in your Babylon that you've been come out of, you will stay in your confusion. You will stay in the confusion of the doctrines of the demons that have been given to us for centuries. We are to come out of those doctrines of demons. And he says, for his princes was it so on, and his messengers came to Hannes. So understand, we are to come out of this Babylon place. And that's why, we see where, the Father speaks. Abraham speaks twice in one chapter to Elazar and tells him, do not take my son back from whence you came. Do not take him back into Egypt. Do not take him back into Babylon. Do not take him back into the place of where he came from. So, we look and we read verse 10. And the servant took 10 of his master's camels and left, for all his master's good gifts were in his hand. And he arose and went to Aram Naharaim in the city of Nahor. So this is the land of Haram. And praise Abba Yahuwah, by the grace of Yahuwah, we had the privilege of being able to be in this city. We had the privilege of being able to be there last year, the end of October, beginning of November. We were in the city of Haran, exactly the city of where Abraham was called out of the city. And we were at the well, the same well where Jacob met Rachel, and where Isaac was given his bride, where Elazar met Isaac's bride. So the bride is going to come out of this place of bondage, this place of where she had to come out of the wilderness. She had to come out of her idolatry. Because remember, what did Haran symbolize? The idolatry. It was the land of the Chaldeans. It was all about the idolatrous idols. And that is why Rachel was not buried in that tomb, because Rachel took the father's idols and hid the father's idols, because she did not want to break with the idolatry of her father Laban's idols. Because this is the idolatrous people that will continue in their idol worship of self and everything that gets given to us from the world, to elate ourselves in the ways of the world. It's all about my kingdom and my building and my establishing my ways, my kingdom. It's about self being on a throne. It's idolatrous self on a throne. And this is where he's saying, take 10 camels, that she needs to come completion to the end of herself. This bride must be at the end of herself. 10 is the number of tested and tried and proved faithful. She has come to the end of herself. She has surrendered herself completely and utterly to me. And 10 is the number of tested and tried and proved faithful, but it's also the number of divine spiritual order. This bride will be led into the divine spiritual order of the Father. She's coming out of her idolatrous way. She's coming out of this place of Babylon confusion. She's in the doctrines of demons, but she's coming out of that, and she's going to serve. She's going to lay her life down, and she's going to follow her master wherever she is. She's come to the understanding, let the dead bury the dead. I'm going to follow him. I'm going to follow him wherever he goes. I'm going to pick up my stake. I'm going to deny myself, and I'm going to follow my master wherever he goes. That is her commission. And so we continue to read, and it says, verse 12, and he said, Yahuwah Elohah. Now we're going to see the servant heart of Eliezer, because what does Eliezer's name mean? So if we take the man, Eleazar, in the scriptures here, it says Eleazar. So if we take Eleazar, or in the other Bibles, Eliezer, whose name means Yah is help. So he had an understanding that Yahuwah is my help. He comes to Abba and does not do his own thing. He trusts in the leading of the messenger that his master spoke about. His master spoke about a messenger that was going to go ahead of him, that was going to help him. So do you see, is that where we are? Do we put our trust and our faith in the messenger that has been given to us, the one that has gone ahead of us to be able to lead us into the promises of the Father? And it says, and he said, Yahuwah Elohah, my master, Abraham, please cause her to meet before me this day and show loving commitment to my master Abraham. So he humbles himself and he prays. He's a praying man. He's a man seeking Abba Yahuwah. See, I'm standing here by the fountain of water. And so understand, he is standing here by the fountain of water. And the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Now let it be the woman, let it be the young woman to whom I say, please let down your jar, let me drink. And she says, drink, and let me water your camels too. Let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Yitzhak, and let me know by this that you have shown loving commitment to my master. So you know what? He doesn't go there with his plan. He doesn't go there with his plan. He goes and he humbles himself. He seeks the Father, and he says, Father, if this be your will, then let this be the way it's going to plan out. I put my trust and my faith in you. You are the master. You are Yahuwah. You are the great I am of Abraham, the one whom we serve. Reveal yourself so that I may know what your leading is. Do you see, is this the way that we address things? Is this the way that we trust in the leading of Yahuwah, that we trust in his leading? And so in verses 15 it says, and it came to be that before he had ended speaking, that see Rivka, who was born to Bethuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, came out with her jar on her shoulder. And the young woman was very good looking, a maiden, no man having known her. And she went down to the fountain, filled her jar, and came up. So she is a virgin. She's a set apart one. She's the one set apart unto the Yahuwah. She is not wanting to be able to be tied to all these lovers. Do you understand? She's let go of all these lovers. She's a virgin. This is exactly what it says. That in many times we want to see the virgin as she is a physical virgin. She's a woman that doesn't know, but I'm giving you the spiritual understanding. And the spiritual understanding is in Revelation chapter 14, when we see this 144,000, this set apart bride, and it says, Revelation chapter 14 verses 4, they are those who are not defiled with woman, for they are maidens. They are those following the Lamb wherever he leads them. So you see, she is set apart, going to follow the Lamb. She is absolutely a servant. They were redeemed from among men, being first fruits of Elohah, and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no falsehood. So she wants nothing to do with the idolatrous ways of Egypt and Babylon. She's come out of Babylon. She's come out of following the false gods, the false religion, the false ways. She's totally out of this, and they are blameless before the throne of Elohah. This is the true bride. This is the true bride, beloveds. You must understand there's a counterfeit bride and there's a true bride. And we must want to be able to seek to be the true bride. And so by the time we get to verse 19c, she said, drink, my master, because he comes, asks her for a drink, and she says, drink, my master. And she hurried and let her jar down to her hand and gave him drink. And when she had finished giving him a drink, she said, let me draw water for your camels too until they have finished drinking. So here we see this woman that is going to be able to give drink to 10 camels. How much water is this? So you see, she is also symbolic of the 10 tribes of the house of Israel. She is a servant bride. She is a bride that has a servant heart. She's not sitting over there saying, well, I'll only give you water to drink, because you are only one man. I don't want to give 10 camels. 10 camels is a lot of water. I'm going to have to go backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. It's no trouble to her. She has such a servant heart that she's humble. She's going to humble herself before all these camels, and she's going to be able to. She's not serving the Father because she's trying to get something from him. She doesn't even know. She doesn't even know who this man is. She doesn't even know that this man has put a fleece out to the Father to find a bride for a very wealthy young man. She doesn't know this because in her heart, she's not serving her king because she's trying to get something from him. She's serving her king out of absolute love and a servant heart. And that is the true bride of Yahuwah. The true bride of Yahuwah is not doing something because I want something from him. I'm not going to do this because I want that. I am serving because of the absolute love that I have for my king. And this is going to be the difference, and we're going to hear this. We're going to understand this. There's no selfishness in this bride. This bride she's got the water. She carries the living water to be able to give water to drink for those who come around her. She doesn't do this because she has to. She does this because she wants to. She loves her king. She wants to serve those that come around her. She wants to serve the people of Yahuwah. She's got the living water for them to drink. She's part of the 10 tribes. She's coming out of the nations. She's coming out. She's those of the lost tribes. It's coming out of the nations. And she's going to be able to serve her king because of her love that she has for him. And she has the living water to give. It's 10 camels. She carries within her the living water, but she carries within her the 10 commands. She carries within her those commandments of the Father. Exactly what I said. If you love me, you obey my commands. She carries the commands of because she loves him. She serves. She gives the living water. She knows the commands. She knows the commands of laying her life down for her king. No greater love is there than for you to lay down your life for another. Not a selfish bride. Not a bride that is so selfish that she's only about herself, me, myself, and I. She is willing to go the extra mile for the children of Yahuwah because she has a love for her king. She has a love for her brethren. She has a love for her king. And because of that, what was the 2 greatest commands? Love Yahuwah with all your heart. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. So as she's loving him, she's stretching out her arms and she's serving. She's giving the living water to those that are going to come around her. So here we are going to see, we're going to be able to continue as we're going to read from verses 23 to 27. And it says, verse 21, and watching her, the man remained silent in order to know whether Yahuwah had prospered his way or not. So understand, she remained silent. So by her remaining silent, she is going to be able to remain silent. Elazar is remaining silent. And as he's remaining silent, Elazar is remaining silent so that he can test and see, seek the Father, worship the Father, pray to the Father, and find out, is this truly the Father's will? Is this truly the one whom the Father is showing? Is this the one that he is going to be able to, is this the true woman that he's looking for? And then verse 23, and said, whose daughter are you? Please inform me. Is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night? And she said to him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, Milcah's son, whom she bore to Nahor. And she said to him, we have both straw and fodder enough and room to spend the night. So she's hospitable. She's even willing to turn around and say to him, come and spend the night. It's not just let me feed your camels now. She will open up her home. She will open up her life. She will open everything up to say, come, I have enough room. Come and stay with us. Come and dwell with us. So even that she's opening up. And so she said to him, then the man bowed down his head. Praise Abba Yahuwah. The man bows down his head and worshipped Yahuwah. And he said, blessed be Yahuwah, Eloah of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his loving commitment and his truth towards my master. As for me, being on the way, Yahuwah led me to the house of my master's brothers. So praise Abba Yahuwah. Here we see that this woman is now the very one that he has asked for. She is a descendant that comes. She's the descendant that comes from the very household that he needs to go and find a house from. So, if we have a look at Genesis chapter 24, then we look at Genesis chapter 24, verses 53, and it says, and the servant brought out ornaments of silver and ornaments of gold and ornaments and gave them to Rivkah. He also gave costly gifts to her brother and to her mother. And so we have a look and we see that the children of Israel came out of Egypt and they left with the wealth. Abba will prosper and bless his bride. Abba will raise up his bride. Abba will prosper and bless his bride. We don't need to go and try and get the wealth. The wealth is going to come to us, because when the Father comes and raises up his bride, he will bring the wealth that comes together with when he raises up his bride. And so So now when we have a look and see verse 53, the servant brought out ornaments of silver. Okay, then in verse 58 it says, so they called Rivkah and said to her, are you going with this man? And she said, I shall go. Is that our commission? So are we willing to go? There is a great commission, just like when Yeshua said, let the dead bury the dead, follow me. Are you willing to follow me? So in Mark chapter 16, we see part of the Great Commission. In Mark chapter 16, let's just go to Mark chapter 16. In Mark chapter 16, from verses 15 to 18, and it says, and Yeshua said to them, go into all the world and proclaim the good news to every creature. He who has believed, you see, go and give this water. Go and give the living water. That which I've equipped you for, that which I've blessed you with, go and give them the good news to every creature. And he who has believed and has been immersed shall be saved. But he who has not believed shall be condemned. And those signs shall accompany the ones who believe in my name. They shall cast out demons, they shall speak with renewed tongues, they shall take up snakes, and if they drink any deadly drink, they shall by no means hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall get well. So here we see that they have been given this great commission to go out. Are we willing to go? She says, I will go. Those are her words. She doesn't even doubt. She's been given this, and she's been told. She knows nothing. She's been told that there's this man. He's a family member, and she says, "I will go." She's a cousin. I'm going to go. I will go. And now we have a look at Genesis chapter 24, verses 63, and it says, "And Yitzhak." So now we see that Isaac is now waiting for this Rebekah, and now Elazar takes Rebekah. Rebekah goes with him, and look at the promise that's going to come out of this Rebekah. So this is the promise that is going to have to come out of this bride that is raising up. And they blessed Rivkah, they blessed Rebekah, and they said to her, so verse 60, Genesis chapter 24, verse 60 says, and they blessed Rebekah and said to her, let our sister become the mother of thousands of 10,000s, and let your seed possess the gates of those who hate them. So we are to guard the gates. We are to possess the gates. We are to be the watchman on the gates. We are to open the gates and allow the King of Glory to come in. We, the bride, is the one that is supposed to stand at the gates and prepare the way for the coming King. Open the gates to allow the one to come. She's also the intercessor that stands at the gates and being able to understand what is being done at the gates. It's the judges that stand at the gates. It's the judges that watch. She's the intercessor that watches and prays, stands at the gates. So she will possess the gates. The Father gives her keys, the keys of the kingdom, to be able to open the doors to the gates that we have to walk through. So then, by 63, we see 62, Yitzhak came from the way of Beher Rai Roi, and he went in the south. So it's the well of the living one, the seeing one. So he comes from the well. So he comes from this Roi, La Hai Roi, well of the living one, the seeing me. So it's the well of the living one. So he's trusting in the living, seeing one, Yahushua, HaMashiach, Abba Yahuwah, and now he goes and he lifted, and Yitzhak went out to meditate in the field in the evening. So do you see, he's also a man that is seeking the Father. He's waiting for his bride. He's praying for his bride. So Yeshua is seated at the right hand of the Father, interceding for the bride, watching for the bride, looking for his bride, preparing himself to be able to come and fetch his bride, listening to the intercession of his bride. And Yitzhak is there, and he lifts up his eyes and looks and saw the camels coming. So do you see, our camels of the promises of Abba Yahuwah are in the distance. Rebekah was the promise. Rebekah was the promise that was coming to Isaac. So are we. Our promises that are waiting for us is coming in the timing, in the Father's promise of timing that is coming forth for us. So then when we get to chapter 25, Abraham marries Keturah. So in chapter 25, we see that Abraham took another wife whose name was Keturah. And I when I look at this, I say to myself, this is just my own opinion. I'm not going to say that the Father said to me, but I truly have to wonder if this was really the Father's will for him to take another bride. Because if we have a look again at the sons that's going to come out of there, and we're going to look at specifically Midian, the sons of Midian were Ephah and Epher and Hanok and Ibdah and Aldah, and all these were the children of Keturah. And now if we look at I'm not going to go look into all these scriptures. I'm going to give you the scriptures so that you can go, and if you want to look into them. So in Genesis chapter 25 verses 4, it says, and the sons of Midian. So we understand Midian was an important tribe. And it says Midian, the name Midian means strife, contention. So there was going to be strife between the Israelites and the Midianites. And we know that this is going to come further on when we're going to look at the scriptures from the time of Moses. We are going to see that the Midianites are going to play an important role in their disobedience. But we must understand that in Exodus chapter 2 verse 21, Moses marries Jethro's daughter. He's a priest. And she's Zipporah, and he was from the Midianites. And so he was a priest. In Genesis chapter 37, verses 36, the Midianites were the ones who sold Joseph to Potiphar. So again, the Midianites play a role in Genesis 37, verses 36. And understand, Moses marries Jethro. So at the end of the day, Moses marries Zipporah, who is going to be a Midianite who comes from the descendants of Keturah, who's still from the bloodline of Abraham. Isn't that amazing? That the bloodline still stays in the bloodline that's going to come from Abraham. Then in Numbers chapter 25 is by this time we're going to see where things take a little bit of a turn of what happens to the tribe of the Midianites. Instead of them having to be able to stay under the teachings of Jethro. Now understand, Jethro was a set apart man. He was a priest and he knew the Father's ways. Because I'm sure Abraham would have taught them his ways, the Father's ways. But by the time we get to Numbers chapter 25 from verses 17 to 18, the leaders of Moab and the leaders of Midian caused Israel to fall by their woman when Israel offered incense to their Baals and slept with the daughters of Midian, who then brought on the destruction, where there was then a great falling that happened where thousands of them died because of the judgment that came upon them through their disobedience. This is when the Father raises up, I think it's also Eliezer the priest that is going to be able to go and kills this union of it, and because of their union, there is going to be great destruction that's going to come. So they were set up to cause the Israelites to fall. So at the end of the day, there's going to be a contention that's going to come. So now we're going to have a look at the Haftorah as we're going to start closing off our Torah portion. The Haftorah is coming from Kings chapter 1, and really when I read this, I thought, my Father, what are you wanting to explain to us in this Torah portion of this Haftorah? And so I am not going to read, I'm going to give you the understanding of what is going on over here. So basically, in Kings, in 1 Kings chapter 1, by this time David, we're going to read at the beginning, the sovereign David was old, advanced in years, and they covered him with garments, but he could not get warm. And so this also talks about how they bring a beautiful young woman, Abishag, the Shunammite, and brought her to the sovereign, but he never knew her. She came just to be able to give him warmth. But what comes very important in this time, what is very important in this time is where we see Adoniyahu, the son of Haggith, exalted himself, saying, I reign, and he prepared for himself a chariot and horsemen and 50 men to run before him. So what happens is that this Adoniah, he is a son of David, and now he's going to exalt himself to become king. And so it says in verse 7, he talked with Joab, son of Zeruiah, with Abithar the priest, and they supported Adoniah. Verse 8, but Zadok the priest and Banyahu, son of Jehoiada, and Nathan the prophet, and Shimei and Ray, the mighty men who belonged to David, were not with Adoniyahu. And Adoniyahu slaughtered sheep, verses 9, Adoniyahu slaughtered sheep and cattle and fatlings and stone of Zoholeth, which is by En-Rogel, and he also invited all the brothers of the sovereign's sons and all the men of Yehudah, servants of the sovereign. So you see, he's one of David's sons. And it says in verse 10, he did not invite Nathan the prophet and Benyahu, or the mighty men of Shlomo, his brother. So understand, this is one of David's sons, who now raises himself up to become king. He knows that his father is not even dead yet, but he's already raising himself as being king. He has a huge slaughters all this, invites the priests that he wants. So he invites the priests. He invites Joab, the son of Zeruiah, with Ibathayah the priest, and they supported. So he raises up his priesthood. So you see, there is a true priesthood of the Father, and there's a false priesthood. There is true prophets, and there are false prophets. He does not invite the true prophets, the men that it says, the mighty men. He doesn't invite Nathan, the prophet. So Nathan is the prophet of his father, the man that has walked with his father David. He does not invite the prophet, the true prophet of Yahuwah, the prophet of his father David. He does not invite him, and he does not invite the mighty men. He goes and gets his priests, the priests that are going to support him. So I want you to understand what the Father showed me here is that there will be a false bride. A bride that exalts herself up. A bride that has the false prophets and the false brides, and they have their ordinations, and they have their feasts, and they do their feasts and their ordinations, and they raise themselves up, but not in the order of the Father, not through the priest. Not through the anointed, chosen priesthood of the Father, not through the prophets of the Father, the set-apart, true prophets of the Father. This is a bride that sets herself up, just like there is a counterfeit king. A counterfeit king, there's going to be Yeshua that's coming, but before Yeshua comes and becomes the one that's going to reign and rule on the earth, there is going to be a counterfeit Messiah that is going to raise itself up, that's going to want to exalt himself as being the priesthood, being not the false Messiah, with his false priesthood, with his false bride. This bride that is a rebellious bride, this bride that is not a servant of Yahuwah, this bride that is filled with arrogance and pride, she raises herself up. She's not in the lineage of what the Father wants, but she's not a humble bride. She's an arrogant bride. She serves him for what she can get out of it. So the same as this son of David exalts him. He doesn't even wait for his father to die. He's already gone and exalted himself. And so then we go and we see verse 12, and it says, "And now come, let me give you advice and deliver your own life and the life of your son Shlomo." So this is when Nathan, verse 11, Nathan spoke to Bathsheba, the mother of Shlomo, saying, "Have you not heard that Adoniyahu, son of Haggith, has become sovereign, and David our master does not know it?" So you see, this false bride wants to raise herself up. She's got the mixed seed. She's still in the ways of the ways of Babylon. She has not truly been delivered out of Egypt and her selfish ways, but she wants to raise herself up as being the bride, a true bride. But you see, there's a true bride and there's a false bride. And so he goes and he says, immediately to the sovereign, go immediately, this is now verse 13, go immediately to the sovereign David and say to him, did you not, my master, O sovereign, swear to your female servant, saying, certainly your son Shlomo shall reign after me, and he shall sit on my throne. Why then has Adoniyahu become sovereign? So why has Adoniyahu become sovereign? And so understand, and she said to him, verse 17, and she said to him, my master, you swore by Yahuwah your Lord to your female servant, saying, certainly Shlomo, your son, shall reign after me and shall sit on my throne. Now understand, the true prophets of Yahuwah, they are the ones that truly understand. So the true prophets of Yahuwah are the ones who truly understand that they are the ones that know the appointed times of the Father and what the Father needs to do. You see, understand, Nathan knew the Father, Abba Yahuwah's heart. He knew what was the prophetic utterances that needed to take place. He knew exactly what needed to happen. He knew exactly what the Father was needing to do. And so therefore, he knew exactly what needed to happen. And this is exactly why we have a look and we see the true prophets are the ones that know the Father's timeline. The true prophets are the ones that know what needs to happen. The true prophets are the ones that need to speak the Father's timeline and the Father's timings into place. But a false bride is raising up with their own false prophets, false prophetic, false priests, false priesthood, and wanting to be able to bring in the counterfeit into place. They are actually, and I'm sure a lot of them don't even understand that they are playing into the enemy's hands and what the enemy is doing, having to raise up a false thing. And so by the time we get to 1 Kings 29, and it says, and the sovereign took an oath and said, as Yahuwah lives, who has ransomed my life out of all distress, even I swear to you by Yahuwah Eluah of Israel, saying, certainly Shlomo, your son, shall reign after me, and he shall sit on my throne in my place. Even so I do this day. And Bathsheba bowed with her face to the earth and did obeisance to the sovereign and said, let my master sovereign David live forever. Now understand, this is now in line with the Father's plan. Shlomo was the one that was supposed to build the temple, not David. And that's what he told David. And he said, never shall there not be a priest on my throne, a king on my throne, who is not going to be able to be seated on my throne. And from that bloodline was going to come, from the bloodline of David was going to come the Yeshua that was to come. But what is the commission of the true bride? I'm just going to turn the page, go to 1 Kings chapter 2. This is the commission that is given to Shlomo, and this is the commission given to the true bride. So for us to be the true bride, this is what is there. And the days of David drew near to die, and he commanded Shlomo his son, saying, so this is our great commission, which is exactly like Yeshua sends us on our great commission, and he says, I am going the way of all the earth, and you shall be strong and be a man. Be strong and courageous is what the Father says to us in this time. And guard the charge of Yahuwah. So what is he telling us as his bride? We are to guard the charge of Yahuwah, Yahuwah, to walk in his ways. We are to walk in the ways of Yahuwah, to guard his laws, to guard his commands, his right rulings, his witnesses. So we are to be able to follow him in spirit and in truth, as it is written in the Torah of Moshe, so that you do wisely all that you do and wherever you turn, so that Yahuwah does establish his word. So Yahuwah must establish his word on the earth through his true set-apart servants. He spoke concerning me, saying, if your sons guard their ways to walk before me in truth with all their heart and with all their being, saying, there is not to cease a man of yours on the throne of Israel. So this is our commission. We are to be able to guard his way. We are to be able to walk before Yahuwah in truth, and with all our heart and with all our being, we are to serve him. We are to be this humble bride, set apart unto him, to be able to follow him. So may Abba Yahuwah bless you all. I praise Abba Yahuwah for his word, and may we walk out his purposes and his plans that he has set before us. So Abba Yahuwah, I praise and I thank you for your word, that you will help us in this time of the visitation that we are in, that you continue to lead us and guide us, that we will be those led and guided by the Ruach of Yahuwah in order to be able to walk out your purposes and plans upon the earth, and that we will be able to not be a rebellious bride like a Donyahu that is wanting to raise himself up out of the Father's appointed time. We are to be like Rebecca, Rivka, that is humble, that is a servant, that is there to be able to obey your commands, the 10 camels, obey your commands, and we come and we humble ourselves before you in Yeshua's name. Amen.